Whoa, didn't see you there. My name is Craig. I'm Mr. Farner's older brother. I'm here today to talk about Marbury v. Madison. So, let's set the context here. What's going on? John Adams, our second president, loses the election to Thomas Jefferson, who will now become our third president. Having lost the election, John Adams isn't feeling too great about himself, and he thinks, what can I do? Well, as you know, one of the powers of the president is to appoint federal judges. So, Adams, working with the Congress, controlled by his party, decides to ram through a bunch of new judicial appointments. John Adams, working with the Congress, passes the Judiciary Act, which essentially creates new judgeships, so a lot of new positions to fill. Adams does so overnight, essentially. Congress rams through all these appointments. Everything seems to be going pretty well. One of these appointments is a guy named Marbury. So Marbury's probably feeling great. He's thinking, this is awesome. I get to be a new judge and get paid and work for the federal government. Fantastic. The only problem is most of these commissions have been delivered, so the deal's done, ink is dry, new judges. Marbury's commission, unfortunately, is still sitting on the desk of the Secretary of State when the new Secretary of State, who works for Thomas Jefferson, comes into his office on Monday morning. His name, James Madison, like the park. Now, James Madison comes into his office and looks at his new desk and sees judicial appointment Marbury, and he thinks, forget that, I don't want him to be a judge, and neither does Mr. Jefferson. So we're just not going to deliver that commission. It's going to die in the vine. He'll never be a judge. As you can imagine, Marbury not very happy with this. He thinks, I've been appointed, the Senate confirmed me. Maybe they did it overnight when everyone was sleeping, but still, I should be a judge. They should deliver my commission to me. Basically saying, here, I hereby name Marbury a judge. Report to courtroom number 3. Here's your salary. Well, that commission is currently in the dumpster at the White House because James Madison said, no way. Marbury sues Madison. Now we have a case. Boiling everything down to the most important takeaways, essentially the court decides, all right, Marbury was appointed properly. We could give relief, as courts typically do. It's called a writ of mandamus. You don't need to know that. But essentially just telling the Secretary of State, James Madison, hey, do your job, give Marbury his commission. But on the third question, the court totally throws a curveball into the works. The court decides that the Judiciary Act that Adams and his buddies in the Senate had used to create all these new judgeships was flawed in one specific way. It doesn't really matter the way. The point is, the court, led by Justice John Marshall, decides we are declaring this law unconstitutional. So it doesn't match up with what's in the Constitution, therefore it's invalid. We're striking it down. All right, that brings us to one of 3 vocab terms that I'm going to lay out for you here. You already know this, judicial review. So that's exactly what Justice Marshall just did. The Supreme Court looked at a law passed by Congress, signed by the president, and said this conflicts with the Constitution. Therefore, we're throwing it out. In essence, the Supreme Court just gave itself a huge power, the power to throw out entire laws, the power of judicial review. All right, throwing another vocab term at you, our second vocab term out of 3. So judicial review, the first vocab term, is an example of checks and balances. That's our second term. So checks and balances, pretty self-explanatory, basically means one branch is able to check the power of one of the other 2 branches. That's exactly what judicial review does. So when Congress, legislative branch, and the president, executive branch, pass a law, the third branch, the judicial branch, led by the Supreme Court, gets to look at it and say, is this constitutional? If it's not constitutional, so it conflicts with the Constitution, they can throw it out. That's what Marbury v. Madison gave us, the gift of judicial review, which is a check. So let's think up a hypothetical example of how judicial review would work. Let's say the state of Wisconsin has been having lots of issues with gun violence. So they say, we're going to try something new here. We're going to ban guns. No more guns. Can't sell them, can't buy them, can't own them. There's a pretty safe chance there's going to be a lawsuit. That case will work its way through the courts, probably get to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court will look at that and say, well, that pretty clearly conflicts with the Second Amendment that says the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. So what will the court do? Under the power of judicial review given to us by Marbury v. Madison, the court's going to throw out that Wisconsin law. That's judicial review in action. That's it. So the third term, stare decisis. Okay, that's Latin for let the decision stand. Essentially, all it means is that we should generally depend on precedent in our judicial system. So we're not going to rethink the wheel every 10 seconds. It just wouldn't work. Marbury v. Madison gave us judicial review. Judicial review has worked pretty well, all things considered, and it's become a cornerstone of the American political, legislative, judicial process. So stare decisis tells us we're not going to go back and every 3 seconds ask ourselves, did the court get that right? Should we redo that? And when I say we, I mean courts. You and I don't really have much say in that. The courts are going to give deference to Marbury v. Madison, and they're going to say, all right, that case decided judicial review is a thing. Supreme Court gave themselves that power. That was hundreds of years ago. It's been working all right. We're going to leave it. Stare decisis. It stands. We're not going to meddle with it. That's it. It's law. So let's put it all together. Marbury v. Madison, this case about commissions and judicial appointments and political drama, gives us judicial review, the power of the courts to look at laws, determine if they're constitutional or not, and if they're not, invalidate them and throw them out. Judicial review is an example of checks and balances, so it's a check by the judicial branch on the other two branches. And lastly, stare decisis, let the decision stand. It's why we still have the Marbury v. Madison case. Even if it seems radical, it was hundreds of years ago. It's been working pretty well. It's a cornerstone of our laws and our legal system today. We're not going to reinvent the wheel every 10 minutes. It's over. It's done. We're not debating it. Let's move on. That's all I got for you today. Study hard. Listen to Mr. Farner. I'll check in again soon. Take care.